right. You may be seated. And thanks so much for being here. And hey, while you're sitting down, let's give a hand and welcome everybody who's joining in online or through the podcast, YouTube, whatever. Man, we're just glad you're here with us. And my name's Matt. I'm one of the pastors here at Santa Cruz Bible Church. And if no one has told you hello, hello. And we are so glad that you're here with us. We're in a series called Disconnected. I know for some of you, you're like, oh, that sounds kind of negative. What is that about, right? You know, the last few years, we've been reconnecting all kinds of things that got busted up about 4 years ago and kind of getting back to a normal way of life. But for a lot of people, there's still a lot of things that are left disconnected from kind of in a post-pandemic world. Like maybe their faith, they're not quite sure how to re-engage that because now they just feel differently. Maybe they've had some bad church experiences or seen a lot of that politics and faith mixed together stuff that kind of makes people walk away from church and all that, or maybe they just had bad experiences with church in general. Like, I don't know, our priorities have shifted, our schedules are busier, I don't know if I want to connect with that again. And honestly, some of us are still disconnected from each other in that we have a lot of surface relationships, but not a lot of deeper relationships. So there's still some disconnection out there, and our goal through this whole series has been, we just want to be a church that is a great place for disconnected people to ask questions, to address concerns they may have about faith, church, things like that, and find a home to kind of go through that journey, and maybe when they're ready to take a step out of feeling disconnection. And so now today's message, I'm pretty sure is something you've probably never heard in church, but it's very relevant. It's a little different. So if you're new here with us, this is a little different today. But I think it speaks to everybody, and it's definitely going to speak to you. So let me start out asking a question, okay? So what do a 25-year-old and a 75-year-old typically have in common? Okay, just think about it, right? That's a pretty good answer, actually, right there. They are people, yes. Their ages are multiples of 5. We've definitely got some math people in here. One person yelled from the back, not a whole lot. And I would say that's true. I'd say what they have in common is they usually can't stand each other, right? Now, is that always true? No, right? But is it true more than we'd like to admit? Yeah, right? I mean, we've been talking about a little bit, in society, a little bit of this fun relationship that millennials and baby boomers have. Because they don't see the world the same way. And they don't understand each other. And I know because I'm in Generation X, which is the generation caught between, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mom. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm in Generation X, and the thing is, we're caught between these two generations in this war that has been going on for years, right? Now, if you are not sure which generation you are actually in, I want to confirm that information with you today so that you have that. So it depends on what year you were born. So let's go ahead and put that slide up so you can see where you were. So the builder generation was born between, I think it's 28 and 45, 1928 and 1945. Baby boomers between 1946 and 1964. Gen Xers are between 65 and 80. Millennials, 81 to 96. Gen Z is 97 to 2012. And we are currently in the time of Gen Alpha, who are currently still being born until we assume 2028-ish. So something like that, right? So if you don't know what generation you're in, now if you're in a border year, yeah, you can kind of get to pick. You know what I mean? It's kind of fun that way. You kind of get to lean toward one or the other, right? So, but the funny thing is there are stereotypes that fuel the fire, especially between baby boomer age people and millennial age people. For example, millennials are, no, these are stereotypes, okay? This is not actually preaching saying that this is true, okay? Millennials are stereotyped as not very hardworking. They're entitled, right? They're big into boundary setting, setting boundaries all the time, right? Don't commit to anything and use the word trauma to describe a stub toe, okay? And Gen Z gets that heat too, right? So don't feel bad. Now, let's turn it around because baby boomers are also stereotyped as workaholics who built the world as yuppies, right? And now don't like it and are now scared of the world around them. They don't do well with technology or diversity, right? And they tend to post weird stuff on Facebook. That's kind of the signature baby boomer thing to do, right? The all caps, 2 a.m., brup, right? And everyone's like, woo, we need to check on grandma because she's not well, right? And so this is the kind of thing. So both generations stereotype each other as selfish and ruining the world, right? Like, this kind of thing. And then you got smaller, little forgotten Gen X. And if you want to know why they're smaller, get this. There are only 65 million Generation Xers caught between 77 million boomers and 83 million millennials. So think about that. They're the smallest. And here's what's so funny. They're also going to have the shortest time to be in charge. I don't know if you read a lot of business stuff about succession and things like that going on. I've personally experienced this, but a lot of boomers are holding on to leadership literally until death. So a lot of Gen Xers will not get to lead. They'll lose their opportunity, and then millennials are already stepping up to lead now. So the boat's already moving for Gen Xers, but it's this weird thing. They have a short window to make a mark. Now, those are some of the stereotypes and some of the issues, but here's the truth, okay? We all know baby boomer age people who are selfless, generous, amazing people. And we all know millennials who are hardworking, responsible, amazing people. And we all know Gen Xers who are so excited about the 6 months they'll be CEO of their company. I'm going to make a mark in those 6 months. Come December, I have to go, but it's going to be big. It's going to be big. And as long as humans have been human, older groups of people and younger groups of people have stereotyped each other, criticized each other, and eventually become disconnected from each other. I mean, think about this. Who do you think of when you think of older? Or what do you think of? Who do you think of when you think of younger? Right? Is it someone at work? Is it family member? Is it someone in your neighborhood? Like, who is this person that you're thinking of when you think of older and younger? And then what feelings do you have when you think older and younger, right? This all kind of feeds into it. And I know some of you are like, man, I thank you for this wonderful study of age and generations, but what does this have to do with Jesus and the Bible? I appreciate this, but what is it? A lot. And let me tell you, this conversation needs to matter to you, and let me tell you why. Because there are a few things that the Bible teaches. I'm going to show you this, but the Bible teaches that younger people need older people in their lives. And, come over here. Not that this crowd's older, but they're like, hey. But the Bible also teaches that older people need younger people in their lives. And the Bible shows us that when there are divisions, we make bad decisions. That this is just true about us as people. We make bad decisions when there's divisions, right? And here's the thing, and let me speak about this in a broader context for just a second. If you've lost the ability to learn from someone you don't understand, you're in trouble, right? If you can't hear outside of your bubble and your kind of echo chamber, you're in trouble. If you write people off that you don't get, you are missing out on insights and relationship and support that God is trying to give you. But we turn it down because we assume, we criticize, we don't want to listen, I don't understand them. And when you do that, you miss out on a gift that God is trying to give some of you right now, that we're missing it. And see, we know this with politics. We've talked about this a lot. We're in this election year, and people are, as they say, young people say, wilding out. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are just going crazy, doing stupid things, saying stupid things. If you don't talk to or associate with anyone who's different from you, you've made it clear you are not willing to hear from them or learn from them because you don't believe you have anything you can learn. from them, or you're not going to get any insight from them. And what happens, let me just talk to you a little bit in your job or in your marriage or in relationships. What happens when we always assume and never listen? It's not good. And that goes beyond age. We're talking race. We're talking everything else. When we just assume and put it in there and just go, oh, you're different from me. There's nothing I can learn from you. There's nothing I need to hear from you. I don't need to hear your story. I don't need to know you. I know you. No, you don't. Right? And I'm going to show you from our scriptures what happens when you don't have any relationships outside of your bubble and your echo chamber or even your generation. None of it's good. Because divisions lead to bad decisions. When we are disconnected and we stereotype each other, it's not good. And you are missing things in your life, gifts that God is trying to give you that you don't need to turn down. Because when older and younger, especially when generations are connected, we thrive as people. So the Old Testament tells two stories about this, okay? And I'm gonna give you kind of the highlight reel and the quick versions because they're very long stories. But I'm going to show you where they are, but you can see them. The first one is 1 Kings 12, and it's the story of a guy named Rehoboam, okay? Horrible baby name, but beside the point. Rehoboam was a young guy, and he's just become king of Israel. And he receives a plea from the people as soon as he is coronated to reduce their labor and reduce their taxes. Now, what happened was Rehoboam's dad was known as King Solomon, okay? You may have heard of him. He built all kinds of temples and taxed people to pay for those temples. And people were just saying, hey, listen, can we just slow down on the building of temples? And can we maybe keep some of this money for ourselves? And we're just taxed to death and we're working hard. Could you just lighten the load? So Rehoboam asked his father's council, these are older people, what to do. The older council told him, if you will serve the people, they will serve you. But something about that didn't feel right to him. He didn't like that advice. So he went and asked his friends who were around the same age. And this is what they told him in 1 Kings 12:10. It says, the young men replied, this is what you should tell those complainers who want a lighter burden. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. It's a weird way to say, I'm a tough person. I wouldn't, but that's what he's saying. Yes, my father laid heavy burdens on you, but I'm going to make them even heavier. My father beat you with whips, but I will beat you with scorpions. And I wonder how this is going to go over, right? And what happens is his friends were concerned, man, you're going to look soft. You get up there, they're trying to see if you're a pushover. They're testing you. You need to get up there and, pump your chest out a little bit and just tell them, I'm not taking it, That's what you need to do. So that's exactly what he does. He goes to the advice of his friends. And what happens? The kingdom revolts. There is a civil war that breaks out. And the kingdom of Israel is then split into two, Israel and Judah. All because of one bad decision. Now, how did that bad decision happen? One young guy decided not to listen to the wisdom and experience of someone who'd been there. And a whole nation split over this. Now, let's reverse it. Because there's another story in the Old Testament you need to know about. And you can find it in 1 Samuel 9 through 31, which is pretty much the book of 1 Samuel. But anyway, and it's the story of Saul. Okay? Now, Saul was king a few times. Let's go back a few generations before Rehoboam, okay? And he was having trouble in a war against a country called Philistia. And then all of a sudden, a weird event happens. One of the young Israelite soldiers, a young guy, ends up taking out a giant Philistine soldier. And this guy's name's David, okay? And this causes a turn in the war. This causes a major shift in everything. And David, this young guy who took out the soldier, becomes a national hero. And so Saul welcomes David into the palace because now he's a national name. He's a thing. But David's success starts to bother Saul. And one time he's out and about and he hears this. Saul hears people singing. And he's like, oh, what is this song? And it's 1 Samuel 18:7. This was their song. Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000s. It's not exactly a chart topper, okay? But you get the point is this is what happens. It says, this made Saul very angry. What's this, he said? They credit David with 10,000s and me with only thousands? Next, they'll be making him their king. And so from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. So Saul now has a fear of being replaced. Very typical with older leaders. I've worked so hard to get here, and no one, and I mean no one's going to take this away from me. And this led to this deep, deep insecurity in him that caused him not only to start attacking David physically, but then he went out and tried to hunt him and kill David multiple times. In the end, he never kills David, but he wasted a ton of time and effort trying to kill David, which made his rule ineffective. He was known as an ineffective king. And who was the next king? David. So what was crazy about this is he wasted his life trying to stop something that was going to happen anyway, because you can't stay forever. It was going to happen one way or the other. So here we see an older person feeling afraid of a younger person or feeling threatened by the rise of a younger person. But I mean, here's the thing that we have to think about. Saul will not always be king. I mean, every opportunity you have is a stewardship. You have it and then you don't. And what you do with it in that time is what matters. But he faces a choice. Either I can defend my time or extend my time by leaving a legacy in the next generation. Either I can just play king of the hill my whole life, or I could impact people and leave my mark on who's coming in next. I mean, regardless of what was going on with the throne, if Saul had invested in David and developed him as a person, life for them would have been full of blessings and honor instead of regrets and violence and fear. Both young Rehoboam and older Saul missed the gift that God had for them, and the reasons why they did are simple: assumptions and ego. And that's it. The gift was right there, but my ego can't take this. See, this is true. Think about this. Younger people need guidance and support, or they're on their own, forced to make mistakes that they don't have to make. Older people need people they can help and support, because now you have all this wisdom and experience but nowhere to give it. You got a whole life story to tell and no one to hear it. And without each other, we're disconnected. And if there is a generational gap, we're missing out on insights, we're missing out on blessings, we're missing out on relationships, we're missing out on all these things that God has for us. But, this is where I want to get to, when younger value older and older value younger, that's when a thriving and healing community of people can begin, especially if you're talking about inside of a church. If we can see each other as a gift to each other and value that gift instead of being afraid of what's different or what you don't understand, a lot of good things happen. God has gifts in other generations for you and gifts in other people who are different from you. Now, let me talk to younger people for a second. And some of you are like, what do you mean by younger? Let's just say 40 and under for fun, okay? Normally, I'd say 35 and under, but in Santa Cruz, people live till they're like 140 years old. I've never met anyone over 90 until I moved here, and I've met at least 90 people over 90. And so I realized I want to shift that a bit down, okay? And so we'll say 40, okay? And if you're 40, you can kind of decide which fence you want to sit on, right? But there's a principle in the Rehoboam story for those who are younger, and it's really this. Your friends are good for support, but you need wisdom from those who've been there. Okay? And let me just put it to you this way. Rehoboam's friends were supporting him. They were letting him know, Rehoboam, we got your back, bro. We've got you. You got to be strong. We want to help you. We want to do everything for you. But they had never counseled a king. They were just trying to support their friend. That's all they were trying to do. And they didn't have that experience. And that lack of experience cost everyone dearly. And the people who had more experience tried to help him, but he didn't listen. And you got to understand, friends are great for support, but wisdom is found in experience. See, here's a surprising truth. I don't know if you know this, but older people have lived longer than younger people. Someone is experiencing a revelation right now. I finally see what I've been missing, right? And I'm joking, but here's the thing. Older people have more experience. And with that experience comes insights, right? And I know some of you are like, no, not the old people I know. You should hear what they say at Thanksgiving. And they watch this news channel all the time, and they say crazy stuff. Not any old people I know. I don't know where you're finding them, but all the ones I know, whatever, right? No. You're missing it. You're missing it. You're missing it. Let me say, for example, let's say you start a business, okay? You have a friend that's your age is giving you all kinds of business advice. But let's be real. He's never started a business. So what he's giving you is what we call a best guess. This is what I think you ought to do. This sounds right to me. Haven't done it. Sounds good. And this friend of yours has never started a business. And yeah, he sleeps on a futon and he's still into Pokemon and stuff like that. But here's the thing. He's a good dude. We hang on Fridays. I love this guy. Okay, I got it. He's a good dude. But he doesn't have the experience you need. He doesn't have the insight that you need. Then you have this older person who's ran a business for 30-something years, but you're like, well, they're not as much fun as Futon Tim over here. Like, I get it, okay? But the thing is, who actually has the insight you need? Think about that for a second, right? Because one person is guessing because they love you and support you, but they're guessing. Wisdom is found in experience. It's the people who've been there. You need older people so you can ask questions. Because I assume many younger people want to get better at marriage and get better at your job and get better at decision making and get better at your spiritual life and get better at all these things. And the best thing you can ever do is to ask people who are farther along than you. But can I tell you what not to do? Because, can I say this? You need older mentors in your life, but do not call them a mentor. Because you will freak them out and they will leave the restaurant. That is weird. Don't ever go up to somebody and be like, will you mentor me? Like, don't do that. You might as well wear your underwear outside of your clothes because that is less awkward than asking someone to mentor you, because that sounds like a lifetime blood commitment. You're like, I don't know if I want to do that. Can we just sit down? Just ask questions. Pay for the coffee. Pay for the food. Just go, hey, let me ask you some questions about like how you do this. You don't have to make it look all weird. But see, the Bible reminds us about something in Proverbs 13:20. It says this. It says, become wise by walking with the wise and hang out with fools and watch your life fall to pieces. Now, that's not saying your friends are fools, okay? That's not what that's saying. But what it is saying is that if you want to get wise, what do? You walk with the wise. That's what you do. You find the people who have the wisdom that you need. And that wisdom kind of rubs off. You ask questions. Do you want to be a better husband or wife or whatever this? Find someone who's doing it, someone you look up to and go, man, what are they doing that I'm not doing? I got to figure it out. Someone's better at your job. Someone's better at your craft. Don't be jealous of them or weirded out by them. Go and learn. Try to figure out what is it that they know that I don't know. You need older people in your life. And where's a great place to do that? Church is a great place for this. To connect with people who are trying to move in the same direction, imperfect people, trying to follow Jesus. Because when generations are connected, man, we thrive as people. Now let me talk to older people. That's 40 and older, okay? And some of you are like, I'm so offended by what you just said. Look, man, I got to put a line somewhere, okay? If you're in your 40s and you're struggling, now if you're past 80 and you're like, I don't know about older, then okay? But here's the thing. Chances are someone along the way invested in you. Chances are someone along the way helped you when you were starting out, when you didn't know anything. People came alongside, helped you, gave you a word of wisdom or a word of encouragement right when you needed it. Think about for a second, if you're older, whose shoulders do you stand on? And let me give you a principle to think about. The best way to honor those who invested in you is to invest in the next generation. That's the best way to honor them, is to give it back what they did for you. You have experience, and you can keep someone from making mistakes that you made. A few words from you can mean a world of difference to a younger person. And it's time that you honor what you received and return the favor. It's your time. Or to do what no one did for you, that you wish someone would have done. And I'm going to give back what no one gave me. You need younger people in your life so you don't become cynical toward them. Let me say something to older folks, because you guys tend to be the target of all the news channels that are just basically telling you day after day after day that everyone different from you is your enemy. Right? Oh, look, they're different. Oh, look what they're doing. Boogity, 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 right? Can I tell you something? Not everyone different from you is not your enemy. That's not the way of Jesus. And here's the truth. There's a generation of people starving for someone to invest in them. To take time to just be with them and encourage them. I can't tell you how many times I have had younger leaders tell me I can't find anybody to ask that will coach me. They just are too busy. They don't have the time. And they don't know what to do. If you are willing and open to make a difference, you have no idea how much difference you will actually make. Now, again, don't come in saying, I'm your mentor. You can call me Mr. Miyagi. Ask me, I am great wisdom. Come and ask, right? Like, don't do that stuff, okay? That's weird, okay? Come alongside and help them. Don't stand over them. Stand alongside them and help them. Let me brag on two people. First of all, Renee Schlepfer, who's the pastor at Twin Lakes across town, right? He's a great guy. And I remember I was going through a rough season at the church. Some of you are like, which one? Yeah, haha. Anyway, but here's the thing. Because I've been transitioning the church, and it's been a tough couple years, and we've been rebuilding and trying to create a place of hope for everyone and whatever, instead of us four and no more and all that kind of stuff and whatever. So we've been transitioning, and I met with Renee, and I was going through a really rough time, and I just was like, and what happened was Renee also transitioned and had to rebuild Twin Lakes in the 90s. They had to change the leadership, and he had to rebuild it, and a lot of people came, it was a lot. And the thing is, when he started telling his story, I thought, oh my gosh, that's how I feel. And I've done that's exactly what I'm going through. I mean, it was insane because it encouraged me so much to know that someone has been there. Because I thought I was all alone, and crazy, and trying to navigate things myself. And then I hear this person's actually been through this experience. It encouraged me so much. Triggered the mess out of him. He's probably back in therapy, but the thing is, I'm kidding. But anyway, it was hard to talk about it. But it was one of those things where, man, it encouraged me to see that someone's been there and they're still alive. I can look across the table. They made it through. Oh my gosh, they've been there, and it was such an encouragement to me. This was not in my transcript, but I see someone in the audience that I want to recognize, and that's Bob Rhodes, who is a person who, I don't want to say Bob's age, but it's over 40. We're going to say that. And so, but Bob is one of those guys, sweet spirit, comes in, volunteers time during the week, doing those things, but he is always seeking out someone who needs a hand, and he's always befriending people who are generations away from him and just trying to give them a place and a relationship. Just say, hey, can I help you with this? And people who've moved into town. There's so many young people that don't have family in Santa Cruz, and Bob's one of those guys that just tries to reach out and just be a family person to somebody, just so they have somebody to, and he's such a great example. And so many of you do this. And again, like, I can't emphasize this enough. All the people who are moving here, if you're paying attention to the demographics, they're not connected to anybody. And they're sitting at home. Like, I wish somebody would invite us somewhere, right? I wish someone would do something, right? You know what I mean? Let's just go here. Go do that. Go do something. And you just think, well, I don't think people want to hang out with me. Dude, people are starving for someone that would just invest. I mean, think about this verse. Psalm 71:18 says, now that I am old and gray, do not abandon me, O God. Let me proclaim your power to this new generation, your mighty miracles to all who come after me. And I love that because it says, let me stay alive and help who's coming next. Instead of let me be afraid of who's coming next and let me hide in a bomb shelter till it's time for them to go, whatever. No, I'm going to embrace the fact that my time's coming to an end at some point, but their time's beginning, and I want to help and support. I want to be there for them. Someone needs your insights. Someone needs your experience. And just like Saul, you face a choice. You can either be afraid of what's coming next and write them off, or you can make your mark for generations to come. Now, some of you may ask, how do I start these relationships? I'll tell you two ways. Church is a good one, okay? A great place for you to connect. And again, when older and younger see each other and see value in each other, and we learn to see value in anybody who's different from us and say, oh, there's a gift that God has for me that I don't know. When we see each other as a gift, that's how this thing thrives. But I'm going to add a second one to older people of how to start relationships with younger people, and it's just two words: free food. Free food does the trick. Warm cookies, bring them over, right? Hot dinner paid for, whatever. All those things, man, I'll tell you, you'll get their attention when you do that kind of stuff. Those work. So now let's tie this up, because kind of makes me so irritated, and probably you too, is in a political year and in this political discourse and all the mess that's going on, like it honestly has made the disconnection worse, because we sit and look at people and go, oh, you're old, you're out of touch. Oh, you're young, you're out of touch. And we just learn how to stiff arm each other. But can I beg you, do not fall for that. Don't fall for that. Think about the people who've invested in you, and think about the people who, again, maybe if you're younger, who have the experience and insight you need, and you don't need to be afraid of each other. God has gifts in other generations for you. He has relationships for you, support for you, stories that you need to hear that will be a tremendous blessing in your life. It's a gift that you may be missing out on right now. But let me say this. That means when you're younger and you walk into a church and you see older people, you don't go, oh no. And that also means when you're older and you walk into a church and there's younger people, you don't go, oh no, they found us. What do we do? We're never going to get hymns back now, right? Kind of thing. What are we going to do? It's over. People different from you are gifts and opportunities to grow when you see them that way. If you see that everyone is a gift and a value, because I don't know if you know this, but everyone's made in the image of God, then I can see the gift and I can see the value. You know what's interesting? Let me show you one more thing. John 17 and Ephesians 4. If you're watching online, our AC is busted and it is hotter than a Richard Simmons class in here, but that's okay. And we're almost at the end. We're sweating in here a little bit. It's not to the oldies, but we're sweating a little bit. Anyway, John 17, Ephesians 4, I'm going to wrap it up here. In these two chapters, there's two prayers in the Bible. Jesus, in one of his last prayers, he prays for all of us. And he says that, I pray that my people will be one and mature in their unity. And then the Apostle Paul prayed that we would be unified as a church and would mature and grow and build each other up. And what I want to tell you is no generational gap can survive the love of Christ. When we truly are changed by the love of Christ and we see each other through the love of Christ, we come together. And you have to understand, Jesus, Paul, the Bible, all those prayers are that we would be one and unified and grow together. And I want to encourage you not to be disconnected, but to do that. So let me ask you, where do we need to cross the generational gap and find the gifts that God has for you? Who has the experience? Who you need to sit down with? Or who needs encouragement? You see this person out there, they're just swinging out on their own, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to ask them for coffee and just see how I can encourage them and keep them in the game. Do we need to turn down the stereotypes and turn toward the gifts that God has for us? Because divisions always lead to bad decisions. We assume, we criticize, we don't listen, and we miss the whole boat. But when we reach across and connect, you find that there is a life that God intended for all of us, where we are blessed by the gifts that come with differences. Let me pray for us. Father, we just come, and it is an odd message to talk about older and younger. But Father, I just pray that there'll be some relationships that will be born today. Because we threw our stereotypes aside, and we threw our assumptions aside, and we threw our ego aside. And that there will be relationships and stories shared and joy and laughter and meals shared and insights given and wisdom lived out because we chose to open the door back to each other. Father, help us to never be afraid of what's different from us, no matter how many times it's screamed in our face every day. Help us not to fall for that. And help us to see the gift and the value of all. And to seek out those relationships that maybe are gifts after all. Maybe there's something that I need to hear. Maybe there's something I need to learn. And Father, in this moment, as we as a body of believers reflects on the unity that we could have together, we're reminded that we're all brought together by the unifying grace under the cross of Jesus. I can see anyone and see their worth and see their value because I know that we are all equal under that cross. So, Father, help us to live in your grace. It's in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. During this next song, we're going to go ahead and take communion together. If you're new with us, you certainly don't have to do that or feel pressure to do that. But communion is simply a time where we take a symbolic gesture of the body and the blood of Jesus, and we just recognize that. So we're going to invite you to, during the song, as we have communion set up in the middle and on the sides of the room, we're going to invite you during the song to go and grab those communion elements, and then after the song, we'll take those together.